Greetings, everyone. Marty Sleva here alongside Jared Petty.
Hi.
Jared, recently you informed me that we just celebrated the 35th anniversary of the very first gaming PC.
That's right.
Which is nutso, and we have one right here.
Right here. This is the Atari 400,
yes.
and its compatriot, its sister, the Atari 800. These two were introduced at the same time, late 1979.
Sure.
35 years ago.
That's insane.
Yeah, it is insane.
Atari brings the computer age home.
Okay, Ma, what's the capital of Nebraska?
35 years ago, the first gaming PC.
Okay, so I have some questions.
All right.
What differentiated this from what came before it?
Okay, well, there were PCs before the Atari 400 and 800. The Apple II being the most notable. There were others, though. You had the Commodore PET, for example, the TRS-80 from Radio Shack, which was permeated the home. But this computer was very different on two counts. First, it had dedicated graphics hardware designed specifically for making games.
Okay.
And second, it had dedicated sound hardware for making games. Now, back when Steve Wozniak was designing the Apple II, yes, he wanted to play games on it. That's why he put color and sound. But you had to do most of that through software tricks or really weird on-mother. This had chips for making graphics and chips for making sounds, just like our contemporary graphics processors that we put in our gaming PCs today.
Yeah, it's just one hop, skip, and a jump over from this to the PS4.
Exactly. Yeah, this is it. And it really was notable. I mean, it just looked it's so much better than anything you could do
on the market
at that point. It's like,
wow!
It's kind of head exploding stuff.
What's that? Atari software. It's not soft. It's what you put into the computer to make it work.
Software that keeps track of things.
Where's my allowance?
Software like Pac-Man. Atari's the only home computer that has it.
So we see we have the title screen for Donkey Kong. Were there a lot of like arcade sort of just direct ports?
Tons of arcade ports because they look so much better on this than almost anything else at the time that this was a thing. Now, later the Commodore 64 came along and kind of trumped what they were able to do with the 800. But for a long time, if you wanted to play arcade games at home and you had the money to dish out, these babies were the way to do it. But it wasn't just arcade games. There were also wonderful original PC games designed for Star Raiders being one of the most famous that made great use of the keyboard. But there were other ones. For example, Mule, which is kind of I think, lost classic for you. There were 4 controller ports on the front of this thing, another gaming PC allowance. And 4 people could play Mule simultaneously together, designed for that kind of around-the-computer experience. I don't know how to express to you that a game about buying low and selling high can be so much fun, much less arcadey. But it's all done with a joystick. It's not like it's a really interesting game.
That's interesting. So one of the other things I want to talk about is that you have a Sega Genesis controller.
Oh yeah.
That this came quite a bit later than the Atari 400.
It does with Nintendo.
So why do you have this on your lap?
I have this on my lap because this works with the Atari 400 and the Atari 800. It works all kinds of. You plug it into an Atari VCS, a 2600 as well. But if you can find one of these working, and they're pretty durable machines, they're built out of metal. Yeah, I wish I could take it. There's just a big metal blob because it's before the FCC shielding standards changed. This thing weighs a ton. You plug this in, you find these working, and you can still play the games on them. Works wonderfully.
Amazing.
Yeah, it's really kind of fantastic.
There's very few devices now that a controller that comes out 10 years later is able to actually work with the console itself.
This funny little 9-pin controller went to the Sega Master System, the Genesis, the Commodore 64. Also used them.
That's
a lot of Atari. An amazing little thing. Yeah, it's ubiquitous.
So you said people are still sort of tinkering with this and doing things. You told me that Space Harrier was recently.
Oh, I love it. Yeah, there's this guy who made it his personal quest in life to port informally Space Harrier to the Atari 800, which was not designed in 1979 to play Space Harrier. He pulled it off. Go out there on the web sometime, take a look at this thing. It is amazing how far you can push hardware if you really know what you're doing and you have a decade to work on it. There's been some other people who have done amazing things with it. And this thing actually, some of the games for this came out again they sort of stealth re-released a different version of this in the mid to late 80s alongside the Nintendo.
Introducing the new Atari XE video game system, the only game system that teaches you to fly.
And they re-released cartridge versions of some of the old 800 games and a few new ones. This is Archon, which is kind of a PC classic from the mid-80s, moved on to cartridge form. A wonderful game. You ever played Archon?
I have played Archon. I played that game too.
Yeah, it was
called
Pac-Man. That's the Pac-Man. Yeah, the Gorf. It's a bunch of arcade boards. Up here we've got some old boxed early 80s versions of Sega's Buck Rogers Planet of Zoom and Congo Bongo.
I thought that said Oingo Boingo.
No, that's
not an Oingo Boingo video game.
No, there should be.
There should be. We need to make one.
There's a Journey video game. Yeah. But
so there you go. The 35th anniversary of the Atari 400, the first gaming PC. Obviously, we at IGN are very excited for video games in 2015.
We are.
But in order to appreciate that, you should probably learn a little bit about video games in 1979. So for everything else, old video games, new video games, and video games that don't exist, like the Oingo Boingo video game, you're already in the right place, IGN.com.